Welcome to this edition of Wisconsin Weather Experts. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tom Walks with Stephanie Barrichello this afternoon.
Hello.
Not a bad day with some sunshine around.
It's a whole lot better than the last couple of days.
Right? We're finally crawling out of what has been really a wild weather system.
It has. It was massive, and we've been talking about it for days now. That's how you know how big it is, bringing blizzard conditions, closing interstates in Iowa and even the La Crosse area to very low air pressure.
That's right. And, and that's something that often doesn't get talked about a whole lot, but we hear it from our viewers, Steph.
Right.
And this was really wild. So you see these big red L's on our weather maps, right? And we often show these when we're talking about storm systems. Well, this one in particular was extra strong, so to speak. And that does a couple of things. Number one, it means that the impacts were felt far and wide. So we had severe weather in the southern tier of states. Part of Mardi Gras festivities were canceled in the New Orleans area, or at least moved up time-wise in terms of the parades because of the severe weather threat. Stephanie talked about the blizzards that we had on the plains into parts of Iowa. We had a lot of rain and wind around here as a result of this big area of low pressure. So yes, the weather impacts felt far and wide. But here's another interesting component. The center of this really strong storm system, the big red L, came right over Milwaukee. So what does that mean? Well, we often talk about air pressure on the news, right, or barometric pressure. The average air pressure is 29.92 inches of mercury. Now, on Wednesday, March the 5th, our air pressure in the morning dropped to 28.96 inches of mercury. What does that mean? Well, it is very rare around here to see air pressures below 29 inches of mercury. I mean, you're almost talking hurricane type status here. The record low for March in Milwaukee, 28.81. The all-time record barometric pressure low in Milwaukee was back in 1982 at 28.72 inches of mercury. So you can see we really weren't that far off from either the record low for March or the all-time record back in 1982. What does this mean, though, physically for us? So, we hear a lot from our viewers here that low pressure can impact health. And I want you to think about this for a minute. So just to kind of loosely define air pressure, high pressure means there is more air pushing down on you. Low pressure means there is lower air pressure, or a lower amount of air, or an air's weight, right? So there's a lower amount of that pushing down on you. So you can imagine in a very low pressure situation, that's going to have an impact on the human body, right? Think about it for a minute. Think about when you go to the mountains. Let's say you go on a mountain trip. Now you're up at a higher elevation where, of course, the air is thinner, so there's not as much oxygen. But there's also lower air pressure, right? And you may need a couple days of adjustment in the mountains to kind of get used to that altitude, right? Same thing when you're in an airplane. Have you noticed how they pressurize airplanes, right? So as you go up, your ears are popping because it's responding to the lower air pressure that is now around you, but the cabin is pressurized because, well, we couldn't handle sitting at 35,000 feet at that air pressure because, well, our bodies couldn't handle it. So what does that mean? We hear from many of our viewers that say they have migraines, they have joint pain when you get very low air pressure and things like that. So it can have some impact on the human body. Now, the good news is that we end up having, this is a very temporary situation, Steph, where obviously, the center of the low here was only over us for a couple of hours. Then the air pressure really starts to go up. But it really is very interesting and a topic that, obviously with all the weather impacts, can often get overlooked.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Everybody knows. They can feel it in their joints, as you mentioned.
Right, I can feel it in my bones, right?
We hear it all the time, and that one specifically was a lot stronger than I think we typically see here.
Absolutely.
So very interesting stuff, Tom. And that's just one component to that strong storm system. Because it was so strong, we dealt with, as we talked about earlier, very strong wind. We saw the snow. We saw the severe weather. I actually want to recap the wind because we saw some crazy wind gusts. Not necessarily here locally, but especially out west.
And it had to do with that area of low pressure, that pressure difference again, yeah.
Exactly. Parts of Nebraska, blizzard-like conditions and wind gusts over 70 miles per hour, which is just crazy to think about. But take a look down this list list right now. We will continue to see, or as I actually switch over here, now you can take a look at the list. Across portions of the Midwest especially, we saw gusts that were anywhere from really 45 to over 70 miles per hour. So these are just a handful of them. This is from parts of Nebraska, southern Nebraska, Fairbury to be more specific, 77 miles per hour. That's the highest I saw. And I did try to look all around the Midwest and towards the south. Parts of Missouri were between 50 and almost 70 miles per hour. Ames, Iowa, not too far from us, 62 mile per hour peak wind gusts. And then a little bit closer to home, we saw a lot of 50s. Rockford, Illinois was 53 miles per hour. Rochester, Minnesota, 52 miles per hour. The Milwaukee area saw a lot of 40s, so peak wind gusts 40 or higher, but a lot of spots were closer to that 45 mile per hour range. So again, it was just very, very windy yesterday and of course the day before. Now that very strong storm system just impacting one more area, and that is the northeast. That's the last spot, and then this system will continue to move north out over the water. But now we're watching another storm system that's out west right now. That is going to bring in another chance for mainly some light snow closer to home near the Wisconsin-Illinois state line. So it's going to continue to track pretty much due east from here, favoring Illinois, Iowa, and portions of far southern Wisconsin. There are some winter weather headlines with it. It's nowhere near as strong as the system that we saw recently or as broad. It's not going to impact as big of an area, but you can see those advisories extending into Iowa. It does actually look like it'll weaken a little bit more as it heads towards Illinois tomorrow, which is why snowfall totals look to be a little bit less, but it will still impact likely the Friday morning commute. Here's a look at what we have here currently across the Great Lakes region as well as off towards the west. You can see that rain, that snow from South Dakota down to almost Omaha and Kansas City. But across the state of Wisconsin, we are going to enjoy the sunshine and a quiet Thursday. So going forward today, we will continue to see this system, as you can see, just moving eastward through Iowa and eventually through southern Wisconsin and northern Illinois. And that will continue through likely the first half of Friday. Snowfall accumulation looks pretty minimal here for anyone in southern Wisconsin, maybe up to an inch near the Wisconsin-Illinois border, and similar numbers as you head south into Illinois. Maybe a better chance for 1 to maybe 3 inches of snowfall. So keep that in mind if you are planning on traveling south into, say, the Chicago area on Friday. Then over the weekend, that system starts to make its way off towards the east. We'll see another potentially even severe weather threat as we start the weekend down towards the Gulf Coast. But here locally, we are looking beautiful and quiet. Now we'll quickly talk temperatures here. Today is going to be, pretty seasonal in the Milwaukee area, but you can see much of the northern tier of the U.S. a little cooler than what we've seen as of late. That's going to change heading into the weekend. Now, tomorrow is going to be similar, but notice how we start to see Saturday some of this warmer air making its way back into the Midwest and eventually the Great Lakes region. So especially early next week, Monday and Tuesday, that is, we could see a nice jump in temperatures. Brief, but a nice little taste of spring. So looking pretty good, to say the very least. All right, that is your latest look at your forecast across the region. We're actually going to take a quick break, and coming up, we are going to talk with Rob about some all the seasonal stuff heading our way. Welcome back, everyone, to Wisconsin Weather Experts. Well, it's that time of year. We are talking the start to maple syrup season in Wisconsin. This is huge, Holly, and it's really, really fascinating.
I'm so excited because I always, when I hear or think of maple syrup, I think of like Canada.
Right.
So like something happening with maple syrup here, I have to dig into whatever it is.
Yeah, we're close enough, right? We'll say that. But it's starting a little later this season, but that's okay. We're going to make it work. Our partners up in Green Bay have a really interesting story. Let's check it out.
In Manitowoc County, tapping maple trees has meant the start of spring for nearly 8 decades.
I'm a third generation maple syrup producer. My dad did it when I was a young kid, and my dad did it with his dad.
From grandfather to father to son, yet dependent on Mother Nature.
Last year we tapped trees on February 2nd. We could have tapped a little bit earlier than that, and we were making syrup already on the 4th. This year, we're just getting started.
At this point last year, their trees had already produced 84,000 gallons of sap. This year, just 2,000. Maple sap flows plentifully when the ground is covered with snow. Otherwise, frost slows production. But with temps now rising into the 40s, production has begun.
I have a pattern that I use for going around the tree to make it, sustainable.
Okay.
All 10 miles of pipes filter into one place.
When the sap is running, this will fill up every day. Maple sap is 98% water, 2% sugar.
And then to the spot known as the sugar shack, where every 40 gallons of sap becomes 1 gallon of syrup.
25 years ago, we had a small little flat pan, like a 2-foot by 3-foot little pan that would boil about 6 gallons an hour, and we used to do that out on the driveway sitting on cinder blocks.
But not anymore. The farm now produces 2,000 gallons of syrup a year.
We're on track for a typical maple season. As long as the weather holds out, we'll be able to make some good quality syrup here coming up in the next few weeks.
In Manitowoc County, David Go, Fox 11 News.
And there's nothing better than all of that fresh maple syrup. Locally, it's fantastic stuff that you can find from farmers markets and stuff like that. Always, when you see it, grab it because you know it's going to be good.
My mouth dropped when I saw him like drilling the hole in the
so
tree. Yes, because like I remember that maybe as a kid, like tree sap or something that we used to talk about, me and my cousins. But actually, kind of seeing how the process goes. I mean, it's coming from the earth, so I know it's going to be good. I can't wait though for the season to actually get all the syrup to be brewing.
It's time.
And speaking of the season too, I mean, we have some changes on the way, especially with our time springing forward. And so Rob is going to tell us a little bit about that and how it affects our human health.
And we're joined now by Nazar Yassin, who's the co-founder of Soul. And you are an expert in many ways about travel, time shifts, time zones. We're going to get to all of that. Tell everybody just out of the gates, though, what is SOL? Soul.
Yeah. Hey, Rob. So great to be here. And yeah, you're right. I do have the dubious distinction of having flown over 500,000 miles for 10 years straight. I actually flew 15,000 miles last week to Europe and back.
Wow.
So I'm quite familiar with time zone changes and what it does to your body. I'm the co-founder of Soul. We're a mental and spiritual wellness platform. We're the #1 purposeful living platform in the United States. And the whole goal of Soul is to help you really just get in tune with your whole self so that you can deal with things like time changes and travel and all these other disruptions that happen in life.
There you go. And obviously, a lot of your time changes have happened because you're changing time zones physically. We're about to somewhat change time zones without actually going anywhere as we spring ahead, as we always say. And that can have a serious impact on the human body.
It really can. DST is the equivalent of a long trip. It's a shock to our biological clock. It throws off your sense of time. It leads to increased stress, fatigue, and even higher risks of heart attacks and accidents. So, really, it does really impact your circadian rhythms and your natural biological clock the same way that, travel does.
Right. And there's been a lot of debate as to whether or not we should even keep doing this shifting back and forth every spring and fall.
Yeah, I'm in favor of not doing the shift. It does just have a cascading effect on mental and physical health, which is really well documented at this stage. And so, on days when you shift in the wrong direction, you're getting less sleep. You see spikes in incidents of things that you don't want to see. So it would be a good idea to do away with it, in my opinion.
Right. And that wrong direction can be subjective. I work very strange hours where I get up before the sunrise. And so it doesn't help me that it's light later because I want to go to bed.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So you can't please everyone, right?
Exactly.
So
yeah.
Why do it?
There you go. But for now, we're going to keep doing it. We're not in charge of that. We can't, between the two of us, decide to stop. So in the meantime, what can we do to kind of adjust ourselves?
Yeah, when you see a big a time shock like EST or long distance travel, you really need to proactively take care of your whole self. You need to take care of yourself physically and then also mentally and spiritually as well. And so, the physical part is, exercise, sleep, and what you eat. And, the mental part is really just finding opportunities to really ground yourself and find some sources of inspiration while you're on whatever journey or time change that you're going through.
Right. Are there certain types of foods that help?
In general, it all really depends on the person. But in general, what I recommend is, before you go on a long trip, try to eat at home. Before you go to the airport, and then try to avoid eating on the plane as much as possible.
So it's more about timing than what you're actually consuming. I mean, obviously, healthier food is going to be healthier for you, but the timing, that's interesting. That's great.
Yeah, it's also both, because I mean, in order for food to be preserved at high altitudes and things like that, they have to change the composition of some things, and so it's just a little bit more processed and a little bit less healthy for you. So
that makes sense. And obviously, being physically fit is beneficial as well, but sometimes it can throw off that physical fitness routine, this shift in the time.
Oh, big time, big time. And probably the healthiest thing you could do, certainly after a long trip, is to go work out. Just do whatever workout comes most naturally to you, even if it's only a couple jumping jacks or something like that, or some stretches or whatever the case may be, go on a run or a walk. It just really helps to reset your body clock, and it helps to reverse some of that damage that big time shocks can have on your body.
So as we spring ahead this weekend, if you're feeling a little bit off, get out there, go for a run, long walk with the dog, whatever.
100%. It'll really help to clear away the fog. It'll help get your circadian rhythm back where it should be, and really just get the juices flowing the right way.
Well, because of course we are the Wisconsin Weather Experts show right here, we want to spend at least a little time picking your brain about places you've traveled with extreme climates. You've done so much traveling. What are some of the extremes you've seen?
Yeah, so I've been to over 70 countries. And so, everywhere from Sahara Desert places like Morocco and Egypt to, Sub-Saharan Africa, South Africa, Nigeria, places like that, Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Bali and Thailand and Vietnam, China, Japan, all over Europe, Latin America. So covered a lot of ground. And certainly, the environment that you're in can also have an impact on you too, right? So, if you're coming from sort of a more humid climate and suddenly you're in a really arid climate, all of a sudden your lips are chapped and, your skin feels different, so climate can certainly have a big impact on you as you travel.
Right. We're coming up to spring breaks. A lot of families are going to be doing that little getaway. They might be going to a very humid, location, maybe somewhere in the Caribbean or Mexico or something. And then they're going to come back to very dry Wisconsin. They're going to have to, work some of these tips as well to get back in gear after that.
Yeah, bring sunscreen and make sure you stay hydrated, basically, right? So
that's right. All right. So once again, thank you so much. And where can people find out more about Sol?
Oh yeah, so just go to getsol.app. It's GETSOL.app, and you can download it on the Apple App Store or on Android. And we're the #1 purposeful living app in the United States. So come check us out.
All right. Thank you so much for taking a little time here for Wisconsin's Weather Experts this afternoon.
Thanks, Rob, for having me. Really appreciate it.
Take care.
Well, I feel like he's the type of person I'd like to sit down and have coffee with the fact that he's traveled to so many different areas and he probably has so much knowledge.
Yes. No, I agree. And I could just imagine questions just coming through my head of what I want to ask this guy.
Yeah.
It's so much I want to know, and I feel like he would know it because he's been here, he's been there.
Right.
That's such an awesome life to live, to be able to experience all the different climates and travel pretty much anywhere in the world.
Yeah. I love it. Well, my main takeaway was to try to get outside this weekend. The weather's going to be beautiful. I know we're going to lose an hour of sleep, but there you go. Fresh air always does the body wonders. All right, we have plenty more we're going to talk about, including the lunar eclipse next week. Meteorologist Lisa Michaels, after the break, has plenty more information on that. Stick around. Welcome back, everyone, to Wisconsin Weather Experts. Well, it feels like not too long ago that we were talking about that awesome solar eclipse that we had so much fun viewing. But next week, we have a lunar eclipse that we will be able to see here locally and across much of the U.S.
Yeah, and really, it's going to be a phenomenal event. The big question is do we have the perfect viewing conditions?
Yes.
We're hoping for a lack
Fingers
of clouds. I know. We were able to see even the eclipse over the summer, even though we had a little bit more cloud cover here.
That's true.
So we're keeping, again, our fingers crossed and watching that forecast closely. What's going to be interesting about this event is it is a total lunar eclipse, and it's happening on Pi Day this year. So it's actually going to initially begin on Thursday, March 13th in the evening, and go until early Friday of March 14th. It's not only a total lunar eclipse, but it's also called the blood moon lunar eclipse due to the orange reddish color that the moon is going to take take on. This eclipse is going to occur 3 days before its furthest point from Earth, so it is going to make it appear a little bit smaller than average. But the last time we had a total lunar eclipse was November 8th, 2022, so it certainly has been several years. You can go out and see it this year, hopefully, because the next one's not looking to be back until March 3rd of 2026. So we'll have a shorter period of time before our next one arrives next year, but still going to be a very cool event. The best areas you can see it, well, it's outlined right here. Almost all of North America and even about 3/4 of South America is going to be able to view it. Not great viewing conditions as we head into portions of Africa and Asia. So really, we are going to be in the prime spot for this eclipse to be seen here locally. We're going to get into what is a lunar eclipse because we've been talking about the eclipses when we do get them. It all has to do with the sun's rays because as they approach Earth, we scatter some of the Earth's blue light back into space. That leaves only red light to be on the opposite side of Earth where that shadow is in the umbra. So notice Earth is going to rotate, but we are tracking the moon that's going to go into the umbra, as we call it, where that red light is. That's going to give Earth or give the moon that reddish orangish color. So again, a lunar eclipse is when the Earth is between the sun and between the moon. The moon, again, passes through the shadow of Earth, that umbra, and it's going to give it that orange reddish tint in terms of a color. For us here locally, here is that forecast. We are going to start to see that eclipse begin at about 10:57 p.m. on Thursday. It's going to start to move into Earth's partial shadow as we head just after midnight, then again furthering into early Friday morning on the 14th, 1:26 a.m. that total eclipse is going to begin. Then we have the maximum eclipse at 1:58 a.m. So yes, this is going to be an event you'll have to wake up early for. It's going to again start to continue to move through the ending point of that shadow at 2:31 a.m. Then we go back into the partial eclipse phase at 3:47, and the eclipse officially ends at 5 o'clock in the morning on March 14th. So you will have to, again, be up late at night into the early morning hours of Friday if you want to see that event. Again, the next one is not going to arrive until March 3rd of 2026. So a really cool event, Steph, that we're going to have here locally that we can see. Of course, everything is going to go down to keeping an eye to the sky in terms of can we have a lack of clouds, but it's something we're going to watch for in the next week. So you might be hearing about this, seeing a lot about this as well. And again, we're going to continue to cover it as we head into next week when this event arrives.
Yes, you may be thinking to yourself, hey, it's only Thursday and this doesn't happen until next week. But did you know it was happening before today?
That's the thing.
You may have not. You may not have. So this is an early reminder, something really cool happening next week on Friday, Thursday night, of course, into Friday, the full lunar eclipse or total lunar eclipse. So thank you, Lisa. We will, of course, keep you updated again. Now, really, really quickly, we have a fun video to end the show with today.
I love this.
Meteorologists, oh goodness gracious, with the National Weather Service in Fort Worth, Texas, tried to put up, well, they did successfully put up this weather balloon, but oh my goodness, that poor meteorologist barely got out there because of all of the strong wind that we've been dealing with this past system over the last couple of days.
And it's been extremely windy. I mean, we've been talking about not only strong winds here, but down to Texas. And they actually release these balloons across the country a couple times a day. There's a little box at the bottom of them that can take measurements of certain things in the atmosphere. So we actually use this for information to go into our weather models, and it's very beneficial for forecasting. So while we are inside the studio not doing that, they're struggling with the winds and letting them out there outside. But it does look fun.
It does look fun. And we're thankful that he got that weather balloon up and was just fine. Thank you for watching another episode of Wisconsin Weather Experts. Enjoy the sunshine if you are across Wisconsin today.